So this is part 5 of the lecture on chapter 9, right? So creditors are also hurt by inflation, see, because lenders pay back in cheaper dollars. So suppose Chase Bank lends Bob $1,000 to be repaid in 2 years. If in that time, during those 2 years, the price level double, then the thousand that Bob repays will have only half the purchasing power of the thousand that he borrowed, right? This is how lenders are hurt by inflation. Purchasing power is changed in favor of the debtor, right? Who borrow, or when debtors borrow, they borrow expensive dollars, but when they pay back, they will pay back cheaper dollars, right? The biggest gainer because of this in inflation is of course the biggest debtor in the economy, which is the federal government, right? So inflation is good in that sense because it reduces the burden of debt on the debtors by reducing purchasing power of money that they are paying back, right? Now, who is unaffected by inflation? You see, these people, flexible income receivers like businesses or people who have what? COLA, cost of living adjustments, right? So every year, if your employee gives you cost of living adjustment every year or every 2 years, so it means that every year or every 2 years or so, the business will calculate estimate inflation and give a raise to the employees to make up for that loss of dollar because of inflation. So this is flexible income receivers, right? COLAs. Then social security recipients also get this similar adjustment every time they receive the money that they receive from the social security increases, right? And flexible income receivers, union members, they also so time to time they may because they are unionized, they will bargain with the management. Often there is demonstration to put pressure on the management and negotiate a raise in price, negotiate cost of living adjustments, right? So if when these adjustments happen, that will help the union members protect their purchasing power against rising prices, right? Against inflation. Now the debtors pay back the loan with cheaper dollars. We know that debtors, they are happy because inflation will redistribute purchasing power, will distribute purchasing power in favor of the debtors, right? We have already seen that. So this is another group. Now let us go to the next slide. So anticipated inflation. So as we say, real interest rates adjusted for inflation, and nominal interest rate, this is rates adjusted not for inflation. So if we give this example, so sometimes the creditors, they know that there is what? There is inflation. So to compensate the creditors for the law for inflation, right? For loss of purchasing power because of inflation, often creditors will what? Often lenders will add an inflation premium, right? And then the borrower, the debtors have to pay back the real interest rate and also the inflation premium, right? So this is to prevent the debtors from shifting the burden of inflation on the creditors, right? As long as the inflation premium that is added to the interest rate is lower or equal to the expected inflation, this is okay. But inflation is even higher. Inflation is higher than this inflation premium, right? Then again creditors will lose, right? But because they will be compensated for this inflation by this inflation premium, but that will not be enough to compensate for all of the loss, right? So whenever there is unanticipated inflation, again creditors will lose, right? So the other distribution issues is about Or is there, what about deflation? Deflation is a situation where the average price level in the economy goes down, right? And as a result, what happened? Purchasing power of money will increase. So same money will buy more goods and services because they are cheaper, right? And now all this redistribution effect that we discussed before, right, will be in reverse, right? Deflation will be bad for these flexible income receivers, but it will be good for these fixed income receivers. See that? So because fixed income receivers, they will see that in a deflation price level has decreased, and as a result, what happens? The purchasing power of their limited amount of money, limited amount of pension money for retirees, for example, will increase. They can buy more goods and services. They enjoy better standard of living. Now, most of us, we are creditors and debtors, right? So we have a salary income, for example, and also we have some debt, right? Debt to buy a car, debt to buy a house. So most of us, we will see that we have mixed effects, right? In the case of inflation, right? Income may rise. So for some of us, fixed asset values may fall because of inflation, right? It will reduce, inflation will reduce the fixed asset values. For fixed rate mortgages, real debt declines. So you see, so most of us, we are what? Mixed effect. Uh, but this the effect impact of final impact of inflation is actually arbitrary. Inflation lacks a social conscience, takes from one and gives to others without any what? Gives to others without any. It will take any conscience. That is why, this is why inflation is bad. People do not want inflation. Now let us discuss this relationship between inflation and output. For cost push inflation, see, cost push inflation, price is high because of higher cost of production, higher input cost. But then this will always reduce real output. See, because of a cost push inflation, supply curve shifts up and to the right, and as a result, equilibrium. If demand curve doesn't change, as a result, equilibrium output will decrease. So cost push inflation redistributes a decreased level of real income. See, all those distribution effects that we discussed before will happen, but it will happen with the backdrop of a lower size of real income, right? The cost push inflation. What about demand pull inflation? For demand pull inflation, one view is that zero inflation is best. Inflation diverts time and effort to business, household, and savers. So see, demand pull inflation. Demand pull inflation, the effect, the output will increase when there is demand pull inflation, because the demand supply in demand pull inflation, demand increases, supply doesn't change, and so price increases. As a result, we have this demand pull inflation. Now the last thing we want to say, one of the last things we want to say, then one view, how much inflation is actually good for the economy. Do we want zero? When we say inflation is bad, it lacks a social conscience. Do we want zero inflation or no? Many economists say that some mild inflation, like 2 to 3% inflation, is good because it will keep the wheels of economic activity running smoothly. If there is zero inflation, that means that businesses will see their profit is stagnant, it is not increasing. They may misinterpret this, and they may think that, hey, the economy is entering into a recession. But if there is mild inflation, like no more than 2 to 3%, then profit will increase, profit of all the businesses will increase, and then they will be encouraged to continue maintain production or increase production, and the economy will run smoothly. So many people say that zero inflation is risky, mild inflation is better, right? Now, one thing is hyperinflation. What is hyperinflation? It is extraordinarily rapid inflation. See, it devastates an economy. Is often hyperinflation itself is created because of man-made disaster like war or like natural disaster like earthquake, hurricane. So it's a massive, widespread dislocation throughout the economy, right? So factories are destroyed. Workers have had to flee, run away because of the disaster. So there is a sudden drop of output, and price of goods and services increase so much. Even then, they cannot buy, right? Goods and services. There's so much big shortfall, right? Money becomes worthless, right? Consumers don't know what to pay. Businesses don't know what to charge. Like in Zimbabwe in 2008, there was 14.9 billion% inflation, and Serbia inflation was 156 million 312,790% from February 1993 to January 1994. Democratic Republic of Congo, right? Democratic Republic of Congo was 69,502% between November 1993 to December 1994. In Germany after World War I and in Japan after World War II, because of the massive destruction caused by the war to the production facilities, there was shortage of goods and services, and there was what? There was the similar in hyperinflation. So there was a big sum because Germany had to pay a big sum of money to the Allied forces, and because but the German government did not have enough money to pay those debt, to pay that amount, right? So the government simply started to print money and pay the debt, but as the government print more money, this resulted in a big hyperinflation after the war, both in Germany and Japan, right? Okay. So these are some examples that you can discuss. Stock price, stock market, and the economy, right? Stock price changes, right? We know there are so many determinants of stock prices, and so bad news about a business will generally reduce the price of those stocks, and good news about the business will what? Increase the price of those stocks, right? Like if there is news that this company is making good profit and they are declaring attractive dividend for their stocks, then the price of those stocks will increase, right? Okay. So wealth effect, when people invest money in the stock market, but when price of stocks increase, the size of their investment increase. So people have what? A positive wealth effect, right? People see that their initial investment has grown in size. They have become wealthier, right? Now, what about the stock market bubbles? Sometimes there is one. Sometimes there is a lot of demand for stocks that increases price of a stock, right? And but this is actually a bubble. Often after some time, investors lose interest and they start to withdraw, and at that time, price of the stocks collapse and the bubble burst. This has happened, but happened often. So one example of this bubble is what? Is the real estate crisis that started the what? Real estate crisis in the subprime market that started in 2007, right? In the middle of 2007, and that resulted that bubbles in the real estate market resulted in the Great Recession of 2007 2009, right? So that those can also, so this bubble is very risky. See, bubbles, they are huge unwarranted rise in stock prices. So investors, they are suddenly too much enthusiastic, right? And they are driving, they are investing,